Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is our virtual education and tasting series, episode 3. We'll be starting shortly. My name is Ashley Spilak. I'm with the BC Wine Institute. Our host today is coming from us from Vancouver is sommelier Sean Nelson. Sean brings his love for wine seriously, has been pursuing this since 2011 after nearly a decade spent in the hospitality profession. Among many accomplishments in wine, in 2016, Sean passed his advanced sommelier examination on the first attempt and became Western Canada's youngest advanced sommelier. Today, he has founded Somm Wine Guy and is part of the wine team for the 5-time winner of Best Upscale Restaurant in Vancouver, Hawksworth Restaurant. Obviously, we're thrilled to have Sean leading our tasting today. This event will last 45 minutes. It will include a short 15-minute Q&A session after the tasting to answer any of your questions. Please share your questions during any time of the webinar, and time permitting, we'll do our best to answer all of them at the end. Technical tasting notes for these wines are located on the right-hand side for download, so please follow along. Beyond a visit to these BC wineries, and for BC and Alberta viewers looking to find these BC wines in stores, I will be posting that information in the chat on the right side of your screen.
All right. Oh, and we thought we'd have technical difficulties.
Just a little bit there.
There she is.
There we go.
There.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right.
Did you miss all of that?
No, just the last 10 seconds where everything's perfect. We're good. Thank you.
Okay, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashley. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Like Ashley said, my name's Sean Nelson. I'm from Hawksworth Restaurant and Somm Wine Guy Consulting. I'm joined by Mark Hopley, winemaker for Hester Creek Winery in the South Okanagan, and Dylan and Devon Hamilton from Pacific Breeze Urban Winery in New Westminster. Super interesting topic and way to talk about BC wine with this webinar. We really wanted to focus on the diversity of styles and wines produced in BC, and really fortunate to have these two fantastic groups to kind of play off of each other and talk about their approach to producing great British Columbia wine. Mark, why don't you take a few minutes to just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about Hester Creek and about the history and the style of wines that Hester Creek produces.
Sure, yeah, I appreciate that, Sean. So I'm Mark Hopley, winemaker here at Hester Creek Estate Winery. We're situated on the Golden Mile Bench, okay, so we're just south of Oliver. We're fortunate enough to have here some really old vines. So a lot of the vines on the property were planted originally by the original owner, Joe Bisnardo, back in 1968. So actually, the wines that we're going to be tasting today were from the original planting, so it fits really nice into what we're trying to showcase. And the Pinot Blanc and the Cabernet Franc that we're going to taste today, I think, do extremely well on this site, and hopefully it shows on the glass.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you. Dylan, Devon, why don't you two as well, just a little intro to Pacific Breeze for those people that aren't familiar, a little history and style-wise.
Sure, yeah. Well, we started out in 2005, founded by my father, Maurice. And yeah, we started selling, I guess, in 2007. And we kind of slightly different model, being kind of closer to the city. We're in New Westminster, which is kind of suburb of Vancouver. So we say 20 minutes from just about anywhere in the GVRD on a good day. But yeah, kind of that garagiste movement from France, we've adopted a little bit, as well as that kind of more urban garage feel from a lot of wineries kind of down in the States, more Woodinville area and stuff. We're closer to the population density, but sourcing grapes from still premier grape growing region. So yeah, that's kind of, and I've kind of been here since the beginning. I've been making wine kind of since before 2005. That's where kind of I've been here since then.
Yeah, I'm Devon. I joined in 2012. I should also mention we are husband and wife, so that's why we're not social distancing.
Yeah.
So we used to work a little bit with fruit from south of the border. Just when it started, it was really hard to find grapes in BC in 2005 from independent growers. So since we've taken over kind of the winery operations, we pivoted almost exclusively now to 100% BC grapes. So We are, BC VQA Winery here in the city.
Fantastic. I love it. I love the difference in these two producers, and we're going to look at some of the wines that they produce. We're going to taste their Pinot Blancs side by side, have them kind of play off each other, talk about what they like, what they maybe do differently, and then the Cabernet Franc as well. The most, I think, interesting thing when doing kind of the prep for all of this was really digging into the diversity in BC and how many different varieties are produced, how many different producers are doing things that maybe nobody else is doing. In the case of Hester Creek, you have, I think, the only Trebbiano planted in the Okanagan Valley, which is, I mean, not something.
That's accurate.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's not. I was going to say it's not something you see every day, Sean, and it's again original planting from 1968. The unique thing about that variety is it really does need some heat. You know, it's from a Mediterranean climate, and I think it does exceptionally well. And when you're dealing with 52-year-old vines, they tend to crop themselves back at that point. They look like basically tree trunks in the vineyard. So, pretty grateful to work with that fruit. And same with the Block 4 Pinot Blanc. Same animal, same planting in 1968. So, yeah.
Very cool. And Dylan and Devon, being a garagiste winery, like being able to focus only on the things that you really want to do, going out and finding the best fruit that you can find, and focusing on as many things as you really want to, gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of the styles of wine that you're able to produce, what you want to do in any given year. Makes for a really interesting contrast in styles. I don't know if there are many other garagiste wineries in BC or anybody that kind of falls into that umbrella.
Yeah, there's a couple now kind of popping up here and there. Vancouver Urban Winery is the one that comes closest to mind here. Similar models.
Similar style, yeah. They're in the city at least, yeah.
Cool, awesome. No, I'm actually kind of enjoying hearing the SkyTrain in the background. It makes me feel really connected to the winery in the West.
We are here, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, why don't we just kind of take a few minutes, taste through some of the wines. We'll talk back and forth. We'll see kind of what's going on with the Pinot Blancs from Hester Creek, and then with Pacific Breeze. Those of you at home that have purchased the wines ahead of time, please feel free to taste along with us. The first wine that we've got is the 2018 Hester Creek Pinot Blanc, which is coming from the Golden Mile Bench. It is a blend of their Block 9 and Block 4 plantings of Pinot Blanc. The Block 4 was planted in 68. Is that right, Mark?
Correct. That's accurate.
The Block 9 was in the late 90s.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. Do you see a major difference in the plantings in those two blocks?
Yeah, well, there is, Sean, for several reasons. First and foremost, older vines in the Block 4. Also, the location of the blocks within the property. So Block 4 is further down the property, and so basically it's a very well-established area. It's a little warmer. Block 9 is further up the hill, and there's a few more incidental stones in the area. For me, I get a lot of baked apple flavors from the lower block, the older vines, kind of like that baked apple pie, maybe a little cinnamon. But I would say that from Block 9, further up the property, is more minerality, a little more, more zest, more lemon lime. We marry the two together, and I think it shows quite well. And just so you're aware, we're in kind of vintage rollover right now with this wine. So we have the 18 and the 19 both available in the market. So if you happen to have the 19 in front of you, great. It's a good indication of the 19 vintage, a little more vibrant acidity. The 18 is starting to show, I think it's starting to show its age a little bit, but it's still got some nice vibrant fruit and definitely has softened some.
No, I really like this. I think that this shows a lot of the really classic Pinot Blanc character, that kind of Granny Smith and yellow apple, the yellow pear, the spice undertones, but also that kind of almost honeyed tropical character. Which
that's indicative, Sean, of kind of where we're at. I get a lot of that. It's a real stone fruit. I get a lot of white peach, as I said, stone fruit, but this is 100% stainless ferment. So, I mean, we don't do a lot with this wine other than try to express the fruit that we have. So we're de-stemming it, lightly crushing it. I'm sorry, we're not crushing it at all in this case. So what we're doing by that is trying to keep the berries whole. So we get nice clean racks and cleaner ferments and less time settling, hopefully, so we can get that wine fermenting away in stainless. So just basically trying to showcase the vineyard in this one.
Very cool. So no crushing. So this is all free run juice. And then
what we do is we de-stem it, and then that's it. We take the crusher right out. Okay. Cool. So because when it goes through that crusher, as you know, you're going to break more skins, which sometimes is not a bad thing, but you definitely get a lot more solids. Yeah. And it's our belief that by not crushing that fruit, you're going to get cleaner racks, cleaner ferments, and showcase the Okanagan fruit that you talked about earlier.
Totally. And this is very clean. It's bright. It's got that like undertone mineral aromatic profile, but at its heart, it is that kind of riper South Okanagan fruit with the beautiful freshness and texture to it. All stainless ferment, and then all stainless aging too. No oak on this one at all.
No, not at all. We haven't gone that route. I have used oak on Pinot Blanc in the past, and it's interesting. It adds another dimension. But in this case, we're just going for pure fruit, and just trying to showcase the Block 4 and 9 fruit that we're fortunate to have. So minimal intervention, I would say, on this wine.
Cool. You produce a fair amount of this wine. It's like 3,400 cases of Pinot Blanc that you make every year, which is, I mean, I don't know the exact specs, but you've got to be one of the largest producers of Pinot Blanc in the Okanagan.
We'd be up there. There's some others making quite a bit, though. Yeah. I think Raymond produces quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay. And
yeah, there's a few. But yeah, it's a decent sized brand for sure. It sells out every year. We basically kind of have vintage rollover on this one. I want to say in the early spring, but we definitely have the 19 out now. So it's just, for me, it's interesting to see how they're developing in the glass, because one conversation we get a lot of when the new wines come out, they're full of fruit and they basically slowly get a little softer, a little rounder on the palate. So you've got options there. If you like more vibrant acidity, maybe go for the younger vintage. If you like the more rounded palate on the older wines, then go for the 18.
Right. And with the vintage rollover kind of happening right now, consumers could have an opportunity to try the two side by side and really kind of understand the effect of development. Because as a wine ages, obviously it changes and it becomes different in the way that you pair it with food. Obviously that the younger 19 vintage is going to have, like you said, that bright, fresh acid profile. Use it with shellfish. You could do something really summery with citrus and salad. Something like the 18 where a little bit more roundness and a little bit more character. You could take it into like roasted chicken, do something on the barbecue, give it a little bit of that apricot chutney or something with a pork shoulder, and you play around with the textures and the flavors, temperature as well. I mean, I had this in the fridge. I took it out about half an hour ago, so it's had a chance to kind of express some of its more aromatic profile, which I really like. I think this is great.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I do like it too when the wine warms up just a little bit in the glass, because I really believe those aromatics really volatilize in the glass, and you get the full aromas from the wine for sure. You don't want to taste them too cold.
No, of course not. Now, plantings of Pinot Blanc are in decline in the Okanagan. I mean, with this being such an important part of the brand at Hester Creek and so valuable to your consumers, it's obviously you're not planning to pull up your Pinot Blanc in favor of something else that's maybe a little bit more commercially interesting or something like that. And I think that's smart. I think that's a good thing for BC, and I think that it's speaks to not only the value of the brand that you've created, the value of the wine, but also to keep that balance of things that are maybe less popular and less available than your Pinot Gris and your Merlot and Chardonnay and everything else that are a lot more widespread.
Well, I really think it's an underrated varietal. Like, I know for me personally, it's a go-to wine around my house because it goes with so many foods. It's full of fruit, and we're definitely not making any less of it. We're using more Pinot Blanc than other. Like, we do a late harvest Pinot Blanc, which is really interesting because you get the full the essence of the Pinot Blanc grape with all that residual sugar from the natural fruit, which is really nice. But it's not going anywhere around here. We like I say, we sell out of it, and we believe it makes a great varietal.
That's awesome. The block 4, the plantings, are you seeing them become less productive over time? Is there a worry that you're eventually going to have to pull up that block and plant it?
I think the way I would approach that is you're always having to do some replanting. So when you walk through an old block that's maybe 50 years old, you're going to see some smaller vines in between. So maybe some vines, they kind of give up the ghost and you have to replant it. Or in some cases, a lot of the vines were spaced really far apart. So there has been some additional plantings in some of the blocks. So in answer to your question, yeah, the older vines definitely crop a lot less. You see that without a doubt. And it's a visual thing. You'll just walk through the vineyard and you'll see those large trunks, and they're hanging a lot less fruit than for instance, the younger counterpart in block 9.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for having that with us to share. Why don't we taste Dylan and Devon's Pinot Blanc, and we can see kind of how these two differ both vintage-wise and style-wise.
I also want to say this is fantastic. Just tasting the 2018 Hester Creek. Love the Pinot Blanc.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's got a cool, kind of like that Fiji apple that kind of goes to something a little bit more tropical, and then kind of ends with like a floral, I want to say honeysuckle or something. That's just a very cool play on like a good dynamic.
Yeah.
And okay, so I just stuck my nose in the Pacific Breeze, and like right away, the difference in the vintage is apparent with so much brighter and riper fruit right now. Like it reminds me of those Dole fruit cups that you had in your lunch when you were a kid. You just get all of that really like pineapple and melon and fresh ripe fruit, and a little bit of that extra kind of honey character, which I'm
very honey
fruit. Because I think is super fun to see kind of right off the bat. There's a little bit more residual sugar in the Pacific Breeze, I think, than in the Hester Creek. You guys have got about 10 grams of residual sugar in there?
Just under 10, yeah.
Yeah, just under 10 there.
And then Mark, the Hester Creek sitting around 6.
Yeah, that's about as high as we would ever go with that. We're usually around, say, between 4 and 6. Yeah. But I mean, I think on the Pacific Breeze, kudos to you guys, because that acidity balances, and that's the balance, right? You're always looking for that.
Yeah, we're always going for that balance.
It shows well.
Which is awesome. I mean, that's always key for any variety, is finding that really great balance of fruit ripeness, sweetness, acidity, texture. And I think that's been done very, very well in this wine, because that little bit of extra sugar makes it also very versatile in terms of the kind of food that you can pair with it. I mean, I worked at Vidges for a long, long time, and Indian food with those kind of underlaying spices, the body heats that you feel, even when things aren't super spicy, you get a warming feeling. And this can play off of those and give you some really nice contrast in terms of sweet and spice. That's very tasty. Like, I'm cool. Can maybe you speak to the difference between your 2018 and your 2019, Dylan?
Yeah, actually, our 2018 is even actually slightly sweeter than our 2019 turned out to be. The acidity was quite high in 2018 for us, so we just balanced it with just a few extra grams per liter. So it still has that sweet and acidic.
Cool.
Play
awesome.
There.
And again, this is all stainless ferment, stainless aging, fresh, bright. You destem. Do you crush, or do you have something similar to what Mark's doing with free run only? And
we will crush a little bit. I mean, we try and back off our crusher to basically leave as many whole berries as we can, but then we'll load it into the press. Again, kind of similar thing with a Pinot Blanc. You want it just to be clean, crisp, kind of let the fruit go through. You're not looking to kind of build too much texture, too much depth there. It's just kind of letting it be its own thing.
No lees stirring or any other kind of textural adds to kind of bring up the body on it.
No extreme badinage or anything. It's
not for this Pinot Blanc.
We do other things with Pinot Blanc. Sometimes we'll change it up from year to year. We'll kind of do fun things. And again, this is a very small lot. This year we did about 40 cases of our special edition, which saw a little bit of time in in oak, but
Okay.
yeah, and that got a little stir, but that's about it.
But that would be cool as well to taste the difference in your Pinot Blanc between the special edition, which you said does have a little bit of oak, and then this one, which is all bright, fresh. Really seeing the impact of the winemaker and the impact of the barrels. Same fruit sourcing for your special edition versus the regular?
Yes, yeah. So we kind of try to keep everything consistent except the oak. We're big fans of kind of controlled experiments from year to year. So if we like something, we can do it again next year, or as much close as we can get.
Yeah, single variable stuff. And,
yeah.
The fruit for the Pinot Blanc for you guys is coming from just north of Okanagan Falls, like up closer to Skaha, or?
Yes, yeah. It's kind of just overlooking the lake there.
Yeah.
Cool. Does that? I'm trying to remember the map in my head. That doesn't quite qualify for Okanagan Falls, the new GI designation, does it? Is it outside of the boundaries?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm actually not up to date on where the exact boundary goes.
It might be eligible. because it is basically due east from Culloden on that side of the lake. It is past that main small point. Matheson, I think. I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, me too. I try and memorize the maps as they get released and all the new sub-GIs, but there's been so much development and growth in the way that the Okanagan and in BC has been divided up and has been made into a little bit more specific.
The sub-appellations.
It is a little tough even for us locals to keep on top of things. But I think it is really valuable in terms of what it does for consumer understanding and understanding where the fruit's from and how it's going to be different. If somebody sees a Pinot Blanc that maybe in the future is labeled as Golden Mile or is labeled as, Hester Creek has their Golden Mile label for the GI on there. But if there's something coming from Skaha Bench or up in Naramata, and you get to see the difference, not just in Winemaker, but also in the way that the fruit expresses itself from region to region. That was, people that I talk to internationally, people that are trying to get a handle on what BC means and how BC can express itself in terms of what wines are produced here. It's often a little bit difficult for them to understand that there is such a huge gradient of styles, because we go from right down at the US border, 150 miles or 270 kilometers all the way north. And there's not a lot of wine regions that have that kind of length to them and can create so many different microclimates and mesoclimates. So speaking to diversity in general, I think that really gives us a leg up on some other international wine regions. It adds to our kind of opportunities for diversity, and people like talking about how BC should have a signature variety, how we should focus on one thing to make sure that we can be understood when it comes to global context. I think that at this point, that would almost be a mistake, because we'd be losing a lot of our opportunity for diversity if we said, everybody should focus on Pinot Blanc, because it has been proposed in the past that Pinot Blanc could be a signature variety for BC. But there's so much opportunity for growth in diversity and as a whole that I don't think we need to. I think it's more important for us to do all the things that we're doing and just focus on doing them well in each little specific spot. And I think you guys have done that really well with the Pinot Blanc. So
I think just speaking of that, Sean, I think that's what also sets British Columbia, Okanagan Valley, Snoqualmie Valley apart, is we can do so many different varieties, right? And like you say, you wouldn't want to lose that. But the nice thing is it gives you a sense of place with the sub-GIs. If you find a Cab Franc you like from the Golden Mile bench, you're probably going to be pretty safe in saying Cabernet Francs from that bench are going to be similar. Same with the Okanagan Falls region, as you guys alluded to. If you find a region of the valley that you like those wines, they're going to be relatively consistent.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
There's often people say what they like to drink, but I often like to ask them where they like to drink, because often if you do love, name the varietal from a certain winery, it might not be necessarily that varietal, but you just like that region so much. So often I'll ask people, well, don't focus so much on the varietal, but on the location of the grape.
Yeah, awesome. Why don't we move on to tasting some of the Cabernet Franc? We've got the Hester Creek up first. Sorry, I didn't show the bottle on the Pacific Breeze. So there's our 2019 Pacific Breeze Pinot Blanc. And now we're on to 17 vintage. This is the Block 1 Reserve Cab Franc from Hester Creek. Oh, sorry, Block 3 Reserve. I'm reading backwards and upside down in my camera. And this is Golden Mile Bench, like you alluded to before, coming from those super old. There we go. We get a picture of the vines there, those gnarly tree trunk looking Cabernet Franc vines on that sandy soil.
Cabernet Franc does so well on this site. I really think that the winery's been built around that variety largely. We make rosé from it. It goes in our Judge blend. Some of it goes to our Garland blend. And the Cab Franc Block 3 is the source of that. So it's, again, 1968 original plantings. You can see they don't crop a lot of fruit, but lots of intense flavors. It's a joy to work with, John. I'll tell you that. We have, just so you know, we have these Italian-style red fermenters here. The brand name is Ganymede.
Yep.
Which basically we get a lot of extraction without pumping the fruit over. So the tanks mix either naturally or on a program. So what that means is when you picture a red fermenting away on the skins and the seeds, you're trying to extract that color without too much phenolics. The Ganymedes are really a good tool for that because they mix. So you're not putting everything through a pump. You really have to get careful when the alcohol starts, getting higher and you're doing lots of pump overs. You don't want to pick up a lot of seeds through pumps and whatnot. So the Ganymede is a great tool. It's something that the winery was really built on. And I think it enables our wines to get a lot of extraction in a shorter amount of time, but also stay away from those big phenols. So they're approachable young, but hopefully will age with grace.
I mean, I'm really enjoying where it is right now. The 17 vintage was, like I said, it has just a little bit of age. You do about 12 months in barrel to kind of soften things up.
Yeah, correct. So we always go towards French oak, 75%. To be honest with you, I haven't bought really any American barrels in the past few years at all, other than a few for the Syrah. But we definitely favor the French oak in this. About 30% new. And again, just the low tonnage on the vines, and the thing I like about this variety is it really has some elegance for me. Like Cab Franc, when it's done right, it gets those kind of violet notes, those really floral notes that you don't get out of some of the big red varieties, in my opinion. So it makes it a lot more food friendly.
Totally, and I mean, I was given kind of carte blanche to choose what varieties I wanted to focus on in this tasting. And when I saw that I could do Pinot Blanc and Cabernet Franc, I was like, yes, this is awesome, because these are two of my favorite varieties out of the Okanagan. Cabernet Franc just has that beautiful aromatic spice profile that I think can be missing sometimes in Cabernet Sauvignon from the Okanagan, where it doesn't quite just get as interesting of a character. This has like that perfect level of ripeness. It's not overripe. It's not over extracted with those Ganymede fermenters. You're really taking care of the texture and the profile of the wine. And the oak is there, but it's not overt. It's still fruit first and character of the varietal.
Well, that's the trick. I always like to talk about oak integration, not oak domination, right? Again, like you talked with the sugar and the acid balance. It's that balance of fruit and oak. You don't just want the oak to jump out and overpower the fruit. And the fruit is so elegant, so special on the site. We're trying to keep that in balance.
Very cool. When I was looking through the text sheet, it said that you were thinning the fruit down to one bunch per shoot. Even with vines that are 50 years old, you still have to fruit thin in order to kind of.
We do.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it is for sure. And it's always finding, again, that balance. Like you can, at some point, you're just putting fruit on the ground for no good reason. And at some point, you're making the wines better. And you really have to walk that line to figure out where that is. And one cluster per shoot is kind of our sweet spot on our reserve wines for sure.
Now, reserve, do you make just a regular entry level Cabernet Franc as well, or is that?
No, but we do use it in, so we do a Cabernet Merlot blend in our Winemaker series. But so we do use Cab Franc, in other places, obviously, but
Awesome.
This is the only great Cab Franc right now that we make. Yeah.
I love Cabernet Franc Rosé. It's just so much fun to kind of see the varietal character coming through in like a subtle way. Right. A lot of rosé made with Pinot Noir just kind of tastes like just red fruit, but Cabernet Franc has that undertone of mineral and herbal character, which is really nice and plays off of some different flavors.
Well, our rosé is made from Cab Franc too, so
yeah,
I neglected to mention that, and it sells out quickly too. But you're right, it's just that essence, that underlying fruit from the Cab Franc is beautiful.
Awesome. Let's try this Pacific Breeze Cab Franc and do a little compare and contrast in terms of style.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I actually haven't had this since I've been pregnant, I haven't had our 2017 Cab Franc, so about 5 months now.
Yeah.
So.
We produce this is about, I think, 140 cases is all we make. So it's
I love the contrast. There's we make 3,400 cases of Pinot Blanc. We make 150 cases of Pinot Blanc, and you can still kind of taste them side by side and compare and do them same thing with the Cab Franc. We've got 40 cases versus 1,700 cases roughly, Mark.
Correct. Yeah.
So
vary a bit year to year, but that's accurate for the 17.
Yeah, and so that's, again, we're looking at the strength and diversity in BC, and you have a small garagiste producer that's doing great things with varieties that they want, and you have a historic old vines producer that's doing the same thing but in their own way.
Yeah, I think you really, it is an interesting contrast in stories. I find it fascinating from a winemaking point of view. I'm curious about the oak on this, guys. If you don't mind, Sean,
we do a blend of French and American, and this one was 21 months in barrel.
So I mean, we do like our French, we do like our American as well, kind of depending on when we do get the fruit in, and we try to evaluate, how soon it can come to market, because we do find the American does dominate. It is more expressive, definitely. So there's always that kind of, we'll put it in kind of a range and then evaluate, the first 3 months, then 6 months later, and kind of see where we're wanting to push it. This point, I think this was probably 60-40, I think, American French. And that's hard to tell because we do kind of reuse and 20% new, I'm going to say. We do like our forest specific French, so we'll use kind of our as many different barrels almost as we can just to get those different notes. I kind of like thinking building a chord on a piano. Middle C can sound just great, but if you just build some thirds and fifths in there, it becomes a chord and it's more dynamic versus just pounding that same note.
You're jamming out in the winery, aren't you, Dylan? I can see you.
Upstairs. Yes, I do.
Awesome. No, this is really, I noticed that as first too, like right off the bat, it does have more oak profile. It does come across more strongly. You taste the vanilla and the smoke and the kind of spice profile of the oak. But then you get on top of that, all of that rich, dark fruit profile. I mean, you could really, if someone wasn't aware, you could tell them this was Cabernet Sauvignon and they'd be like, oh yeah, I understand that, because there's so much in common in terms of the way that the fruit expresses itself in a fuller bodied red like this from the Okanagan.
Yeah, and that is maybe a little bit more our style, maybe is a bit more oaky at times. And I don't want to say obvious necessarily, but yeah, it's definitely, it's in your face.
Which, I mean, 21 months in oak is going to produce oak profile. It's like you're not shying away from that. You're using that to kind of express a style. And even so, do you know how old the vines are in this property that you're working with?
2008.
Yeah, they planted spring 2008. So it's
And you've been working with this property for, what was it, 2015 you started?
5 years, yeah.
Yeah, this will be our 5th vintage, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have you found that you have gained a greater understanding of the property and how the fruit kind of works over those 5 years?
Definitely.
Yeah. It's always fun to kind of play with those, because sometimes we do get, working with the fruit that we do, sometimes might get something for 1 year, but working with the fruit for, multiple years, it does express more of kind of the changes that not just appellation, but just, climate and weather and those undetermined things can play with, right? So it's definitely a lot more interesting year to year to see those verticals. How's
2020 looking so far in terms of you guys' fruit? What's been going on up there?
Yeah, we've been picking up some more.
We've been getting a little bit more, and of course that's always the struggle with us. I mean, when we started in 2005, we couldn't really find any grapes that we in the interior, in the Okanagan Valley. So since more things have come available, we are trying to find more and more. But yeah, from this vineyard, we were able to get more in the 2020 vintage, so we're really excited about that, and as well as a little bit of Cab Sauv from the same vineyard, which is just the south bench of the soils there on the east bench, kind of the south slope. It's a cool little vineyard there.
We're heading down towards the border, so you're really into kind of the heart of the desert there.
Yeah, you could almost throw a stone to Washington.
Okay, so you're not stretching too far from where you guys started with winemaking, which was what, Northern California and Washington. You were sourcing fruit from.
Yeah, that was 2005. Yeah, exclusively. Yeah, Columbia Valley and basically Lake County, California. So.
And you still make some wine from down south as well?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't in, I think, 2017, 2018, it was all BC. In 2019, we got a little bit from Washington State, but as we're just able to get more from BC, that's what we've always kind of wanted to get. And of course, the dream one day is to own a bunch of property up there as well, and kind of, do that ourselves. But until then, that's what we're working for.
This is very cool. I love this. I love this layout and tasting these wines side by side, different styles. For sure, anybody that is a Cabernet Franc fan, I think, would be totally happy with both of these. And they're useful in different ways. The Pacific Breeze with, like I said, that little bit more oak to it. You throw it at something with a little bit more density. You can do like richer stews. Once we get into fall, I think having a little bit of development on this as well, you'll see some integration of the fruit and the oak spice. Like I want some chili. Give me something warm. And then the Cabernet Franc from Mark is like, it's bright and fresh. It still has some weight to it and some concentration, but drink that in the summertime. We'll throw some stuff on the barbecue, do some glazed back ribs or something, that little bit of like a sweet barbecue rub. And
you're making me hungry.
Yeah. I skip lunch.
You guys make the wine. I just tell people about it and make them want to drink it.
It's close to lunchtime. You're making me hungry too. But that's a go-to barbecue wine, no doubt about it, Sean.
For sure.
Lamb too.
Definitely.
Ribs. Can't go wrong with barbecue.
Yeah. What else are you guys producing at Pacific Breeze? So we've got the Cab Franc, Pinot Blanc, and then Gewürztraminer.
Yeah, we do a Gewürztraminer, and we make a rosé, which is usually out of our Merlot. So we do a Merlot as well from Caledon in the Okanagan. And then, we go south usually for our Cab Sauv kind of every other year. So that was from Washington coming up.
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah.
So working with, 8 or so different varieties in the winery?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
Any varieties that you want to work with? Anything that you've been trying to find that you're like, we'd really like to make a
BC Syrah,
okay.
if out there that's got some Syrah for sale. I mean, I'd love to. Again, we're very small, right? So a few tons is kind of all that we're generally after, is for experimental projects and stuff. or just, something for me to drink personally, really.
There you go. Yeah. You send me a case, I'll help you out. Any winemakers that are watching, Pacific Breeze is looking for Syrah. If you have a little bit of extra Syrah that you want to, we all support each other, right? That's great. Mark, you guys are working.
I'm just going to say, you mentioned, we do a Syrah Viognier co-ferment. So it's a wine that's done really well for us. We actually try to source, like you guys, source the best Syrah that we can. So some of it comes from our property, but the large amount of it actually comes from the Black Sage bench. And what we do is we co-ferment that with about 15% by weight in one of our Italian Ganimedi fermenters. And I really think that little bit of Viognier really lifts the nose of the Syrah. Because Syrah, let's face it, Syrah can be very gamey. And just that little bit of Viognier really just kind of lifts the nose for me, gives it a little more aromatics, and makes it a little more interesting. But you asked earlier what varieties kind of maybe we can look for in the future. I think you hit that one on the head. I think Syrah in the Valley is doing very well. I mean, there's Cab Francs are already there, but I think the Syrah is coming into its own.
And I think about being like varietally expressive, that I think, Sean, you touched on it. That's like when you taste a BC Cabernet Franc, it doesn't taste like a red wine. It tastes like a Cabernet Franc, right? Like it's expressing actually what it is versus being more bland. And even if it's, a good wine, it's expressive of what it is, which is, I think, what's really cool about both Pinot Blanc and Cabernet Franc.
Yeah. Like I said, we've talked about some of our favorite varieties. I also really love Syrah. I love Viognier from the Okanagan, especially from the south, where you get those kind of sagebrush, wild, meaty, smoky characters, and then that floral note. I think Syrah is something that's, I know it's on the up, but personally, I champion BC Syrah, BC Cab Franc, Pinot Blanc, and Viognier like a lot. I love working with those varieties. Mark, you guys do like 20 something different varieties, is that right?
Yeah, we have, I think about 20 different SKUs, 24 if I count some of the ones that aren't available, widely available. Yeah, so during harvest, we're basically start harvesting in mid-August and we go right into mid-November. So, the Cabernets, your Cabernet Sauvignon, your Cabernet Franc, some of your Syrahs usually coming in November. The really nice thing about this site is it really slopes nicely towards, so basically the cold air will fall off the property and just go and sink to the valley bottom. So we actually hold on to green leaves in our cab blocks. I've seen it into late November. It's quite amazing, actually. You'll drive into, when you guys buy your vineyard, drive out here after the first it's a dead giveaway. You'll see like this, wherever the cold air sinks to, those leaves are gone. And the fruit, you got to go get it because it's not going to ripen anymore. But up on the bench, any of the benches in the valley, Golden Mile is a great example of that. The cool air just drops off and we hang on to green leaves a long time, which means for a longer hang time and more ripeness.
Yeah, that decrease of pyrazines, which is always, the strong
100%.
Which I think some people have I know when I first started getting into wine and trying to understand BC wine, particularly Cabernet Franc, I was like, oh, it's going to be really green because we're cool climate winemaking. We're a lot further north. We may not ripen out those pyrazines, but it's almost the opposite. The Cabernet Sauvignon tends to be more green than the Cabernet Franc just because it has a longer ripening cycle and it doesn't really get the heat that's needed to give that true variety character. And Cabernet Franc, I think, is just such a fantastic opportunity for BC.
I would agree with that. You need a lot more hang time for sure for Cab Sauv. And, if you're in the right site, it's so site specific, right? If you're in the right site and you can fully ripen Cabernet Sauvignon, it does really well too. But as you alluded to earlier, there's everywhere from Chardonnay to Pinot Noir to big Bordeaux. It's varietals. It's quite diverse what we got going on in British Columbia for sure.
Yeah, we had, I think, when I looked at specs from this past year, currently there's more than 80 different varieties that are planted in BC. Everything from all the aromatic Germanic varieties like Riesling and Gewürztraminer, Schonberger. We've got Ortega and stuff like out in the Gulf Islands and Vancouver Island. We've got Chardonnay, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris, Gewürz, and then it's almost a little overwhelming sometimes looking at it on a chart and being like, how many? What are we doing? How am I supposed to talk to people about this? But I think that what we have to keep in mind is that the reason why we have so much is because we have the opportunity for so much. We're really kind of gifted in terms of what we can do. And I think it shows in not only the variety, like how much there is, but also in the boom in producers and styles and everything else, and our kind of unwavering support of the British Columbia wine industry and British Columbia wine in general. And I think that that's something that we need to hang on to with our death grip.
There's not many places in the world.
Oh, sorry. Can we move on to questions now?
Yeah,
sorry, we have a number of questions.
Yeah, we got
and it's just
45 minutes
time.
right now.
Thank you.
So let's pull up our chat and see kind of what we've got. I'm going to go right up to the top. There we go. Ashley Budge wants to know if you guys are going to make some more Chardonnay at Pacific Breeze.
Maybe one day. We don't have a source for it right now, but
Mark, do you have any Chardonnay?
I'm connecting people here.
I'm taking notes. No, we do a Chardonnay, but none for sale right now that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Not yet.
All right.
Maybe one day, Ashley. Yeah.
We've got the imitable Sid Cross, who's wants to know about making a killer cab with BC fruit.
You're in luck.
So yeah, that is out now.
Yeah, it's in store right now, and we're actually just shipped out to Save On Foods with our first BC killer cab.
Yeah. So that's our Cabernet Franc that actually we didn't taste today. That'd be the 2018 Cabernet Franc. We blended with a little bit of the 2018 Merlot we get from Caledon to kind of make a Bordeaux blend that we've monikered. Yeah, the killer cab that we think is a really good expression of that. So if you tried the older killer cabs, pre 2016, I guess. That should be. It's coming.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's the first wine that I experienced from Pacific Breeze. That was what kind of put you guys on the map for me. I was like, oh, there's this cool, because I worked in a little wine shop and we had some of the killer cab on the shelf. And obviously at that point it was coming from mostly US fruit or a blend of international and domestic fruit. But just it pops on a shelf like you wouldn't believe, just that dripping paint, like taxi cab label. Super fun, super interesting. I really like the direction that you guys have gone with the new label. I'm guessing that's the New West waterfront. Is that what that's supposed to be?
Yes. An artist's rendition of kind of different Fraser River waterfront.
Yeah, we are right basically on the Fraser River here, being in the New West. So trying to be a little bit more expressive of us, where we come from, even though the grapes are from many different places. We are always here.
Yeah, and you guys are close to me too, so I can just pop out for a visit and taste some wine.
Yeah, and we'll come to Hawksworth too. Don't worry.
Awesome. Yeah, we're open now. We opened on Saturday, so we've got space for everybody. We've got a question from Deb, wanting to know about the perception of BC wines between the U.S. market and the European market. Now, maybe Ashley wants to take this one, because I don't think either of you export to the U.S. right now. Do you? No. And the European market is even less so for, I think, a lot of the BC wineries. So in terms of perception, I think a lot of it is just on paper and through things like the activities of the BC Wine Institute and the BC Wine Authority, trying to get the word out about what BC wine is. But maybe, Ashley, you want to chime in a little bit about what we're doing to kind of promote BC wines in the US and European markets? Oh,
it looks like you're muted.
Sorry. Okay. Yes, we do export to U.S. markets and European markets. It is a small percentage. We are a small yielding wine region. But the Wine Institute does a lot of work internationally. We've been to San Francisco, we've been to New York to promote our wines and to really promote that message of quality. And we hope to continue to do that work in the future as well. And we do have a resource on our website that does list some of our distributors in the US and Europe, and I will post that link in our chat. But we do have a presence, albeit small, but yeah, predominantly we are a local producing and local bought industry.
All right, so it looks like you're going to have to come and visit Deb. I met him over Instagram and the internet. We've talked a little bit about he's a somm in another international market. So kind of fun to have that international connection. So we've got some other people from around the world watching. Louise Morgan wants more Chardonnay, which I'm sure that we can hopefully look forward to. Clark Lemke wants to know about what we can look forward to from Pacific Breeze for 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, so
what's in the pipeline, you guys?
what's in the pipeline? We've got,
well, for those that were tasting with us on the 2017 Cabernet Franc today, we do actually have a few barrels of kind of what we selected as our best barrels, kind of still hiding away and actually still in barrels. So our 2017 Reserve Cabernet Franc will be released a little bit later this year, and that is even heavier oaked. Again, we still strive for balance, so we don't want you getting head in the mouth with a 2x4 type of oak, no slivers in the mouth. But besides that, more of the same. We just trying to keep doing what we're doing here. So
yeah, we've got a fun sort of lighter oak style Cab Sauv coming out in a couple months as well. So
forgot about that.
Yeah, that's kind of more inspired by, we did a trip to Italy last year, so we like to kind of bring something back. We taste a lot of Super Tuscans, so we're doing, kind of Italian inspired.
So that'll be like six months of oak, kind of, but yeah, so a little bit of a diversity for us.
Smuggle some cuttings back in your suitcase next time, and then you can get started on getting that. Oh, right.
Yeah.
We had just compliments from Ashley Budge and Sarah Pelopin. Really enjoy the Pacific Breeze Cabernet Franc. Really complex. They enjoy the oak treatment and beautiful fruit and standout, well balanced. So there you guys go, getting some props. Virginia McMahon really enjoys both of your wineries. She says it's living in New West is great to have a winery that's so close that she can go and visit and get wine from. Todd Ricewick wants to know what the GI, what does that stand for? GI stands for geographical indication, and that is basically the way that we tell customers and consumers where the wine is from. So we have the British Columbia GI, which is wines from BC. We have Okanagan Valley, and then you get into sub-regional GIs like the Golden Mile Bench, like Naramata, like Skaha and Okanagan Falls. So that you see the same process applied to international wine regions. In France, you have the AOP system. In Italy, you have the DOCG and DOC system. So it's the same idea, just a different term for the same meaning. Stephen Duke wants to know, to Pacific Breeze, what are the challenges of sourcing grapes, and how much data and qualitative information do you get prior to going out and purchasing those grapes?
Yeah, so I mean, we do obviously there's challenges not being on the vineyard all the time, but we do try to work with people who really know what they're doing. They give us all the lab numbers. We also visit the vineyard a few times a year and at critical points.
We can taste, basically any given vineyard will have, their 2017, 2016, 2015, 2014 vintages of said grapes with kind of like, this is what we did with it. So by tasting it, kind of somewhat peeling off that winemaking method and kind of applying our own all mentally, we can kind of develop a picture of what we would do with the same fruit given kind of those changes. So that's kind of often the qualitative side is really just tasting what their fruit is as a wine, because of course a grape tastes like a grape, but once it's a wine, kind of that's where it's more expressive for what we care about. So the data is one thing and numbers are great, but when it comes down to it, we taste, what they've done with their fruit in the past, and that's the ultimate decider.
Awesome.
Yeah, 100% agree with that, Sean. It's the indicator of past vintages, right? So you go back and when you guys are working with the same vineyards over and over, you kind of know what you're dealing with, but it's unique when you hit a new property because you really need to kind of do some homework.
Yeah, because numbers really don't Yeah.
Numbers are one thing, but it all comes down to what's in the glass, right?
Yeah.
So, Ellie Whiffington wants to know how you get your Pinot Blanc bouquet to jump out of the glass like you do, which I think we talked about being young and vibrant and fruit forward. I mean, if there's any more you want to expand on that, I mean, I think that this is just like beautifully tropical and fruit and friendly.
Yeah, I mean, being young, it's going to have that in it. It's what we strive for, but it's
lighter fruit aromas. Yeah.
Okay. Dominique Bernath wanted to know how BC wines are viewed and received on the world stage. We kind of covered that, talking about like our plans to market and what we do to kind of promote the image of BC throughout the world through the BCWI and all of their initiatives. Ben Dewar really likes the rosé this year, and Sarah says she loves the Pinot Blanc from Pacific Breeze. And then we've got just a cool fact from the BC Wine Institute. The Hester Creek Estate Pinot Blanc is one of their 50th anniversary wines. So those plantings that were put down by Joe Bernardo in 1968, you have the Pinot Blanc, have the Cabernet Franc, and those are part of their celebrations. You guys are doing some fun events kind of with the winery and things this year?
Well, throughout the year, of course, this year's been a little challenging. We always have Garlic Festival in the fall, and we're waiting to see what happens there. But I mean, the wine shop's open again, which is the good news. We're social distancing, and the capacity's a lot less, but we're definitely busy. People are still coming in to visit. We appreciate it.
That's good. You guys are open now for visitors.
Yeah, 100%.
What about you, Dylan and Devon? Have you guys opened the winery, the tasting room in US for visitors now?
Yes, we're open for sales all the time, but we have started. Our space is quite small up front, so we've had to adapt. We're doing just tastings by reservation on Saturdays for now.
Cool.
Just to kind of we're starting slowly, get back into it. Yeah.
Got it. So just scrolling up through some of our questions here. People are just really excited to be able to taste these wines. People that were able to find them in local shops. I know Ashley posted some links to places where we can get them. Some of the Save on Foods still have some of the wines. Obviously, some of these wines are limited production. They're not always available because either demand outstrips supply or just the stores haven't re-upped on their orders. But I mean, keep looking around, and as new vintages come into the market, I know that Save on Foods is really quite good with carrying the new releases of our BC VQA wines. I'm just going to see if there's any other questions. More hands-on than I expected. Thank you, Stephen. Great. I've enjoyed Hester Creek and Pacific Breeze for years. Just a lot of thanks, a lot of really appreciative people who have had the chance to kind of follow along with our conversation today. What's your favorite wine for drinking alone? We can answer that question.
My specialty.
Devon, Dylan, what's your favorite wine for drinking alone?
I think I'll pick this. I can't choose.
Okay. Well,
I can't choose. I just like drinking alone.
I gotta go Syrah Viognier, Sean.
Cool.
Maybe in the summer when it's 35 degrees, the answer's a little different. But I think for a year-round go-to wine for me, I really enjoy the Syrah Viognier for sure. And the Cab Franc, you know what? Both these Cab Francs I'd be happy to sip alone later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one of those little stick-on cup holders in the shower. It holds a wine glass perfectly, so I can have my alone time in the shower with a glass of wine. And
the term shower wine I've not heard.
If you can't drink wine in the shower, then you're an amateur and we're not friends. So
I like that hard line.
Shame.
Well,
we're all starting to feel better.
Thank you all so much for being part of this this webinar for the virtual education series from the BC Wine Institute. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you guys, getting to taste your wines and sharing that information with all of our fantastic audience out there. Thank you, Ashley, for putting this together and doing all of the legwork behind the scenes to make sure things run smoothly. It looks like everybody really enjoyed this this session, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, everyone, thank you, Mark, for taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you, Dylan and Devon. Such a joy. So cool to have both husband and wife, and you're expecting. So congratulations with that. And I also just want to remind everyone, we have our finale, episode 4, coming up. This will be on Thursday, June 25th. And we're bringing to the table Reese Pender, Master of Wine. He will be leading the next topic on ageability. And we'll be tasting some wines, one from Mission Hill, the Perpetua, that's actually not released yet, but will be released in early July. And we'll be having the president, Daryl Brooker, on. And then we'll also be bringing in Andy Giebert, with proprietor and winemaker with St. Hubertus and Oak Bay Estate Winery. So some really great older wines that are available, some in Save On Foods, and some are just are going to be available very shortly. So stay tuned for that. Register if you don't already have, and yeah, hope to see you again online.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ashley, Mark, Sean. Cheers.
Yeah.